This project commenced with 3 interviews, one with a classroom teacher, one with an instructional coach, and the third with the assistant superintendent for teaching and learning in the Nampa School District. These interviews were about 45 minutes long. I used the same set of questions for each one, then allowing for discussion to be directed and moved along by different topics and things we were covering. So each interview looked a bit different from the other, but there were some things I was able to pull from all 3. My synthesized findings conclude with 3 separate points on data and research in education. Point number 1 focused around data being the primary factor in teacher decision making. All 3 interviewees said that it is absolutely what we should focus on the most, being data and research. Courtney, the classroom teacher, said that it should be the most prominent thing. Both Elena and Greg gave percentages of how much of our decision making should be in data and research. They both said over 70%. The percentages they gave were just approximations. They were not found in any sort of number. However, this isn't the only thing educators should be using to make decisions, being data and research. Teacher autonomy, professionalism, and teacher gut all need to be used and taken into account. Teachers need to make informed decisions based on their research, other observations, and their professional judgment. Again, all 3 teachers said this, all 3 educators said this. They were very adamant in saying that it is not a 100% research and data-based practice, teaching. But, however, that we need to be able to use our professionalism, be able to use observation and data we're gathering in person and in class rather than just what we're seeing on computerized tests or written tests. It's very important for us to be able to use our judgment as well. The second point I was able to pull from my interviews was that we need to learn what research says about teaching. Oftentimes, there are research projects or different case studies, things like that, that seem to pertain to our field, but we're interpreting results incorrectly. So what I was being communicated with about is that we as educators need to make sure that we are looking closely at what case studies and research says about teaching specifically and how we can apply that specifically to our field. Third, I understood from my interviews that in order to use data as effectively as possible, we need to use it as quickly as possible. That means when we're collecting data from students and understanding where they are and synthesizing all of that, we need to react and act upon it quickly in order to not let that data become stale or stagnant, and be proactive about where we're going from what we have seen in the data. These were the 3 big picture main points that I was able to understand from my interviews. I had a really awesome time talking to these people and learning from them. It is incredibly important for me as an educator that upon learning these new things and interviewing these professionals, that I reflect on what I have heard and put it up against what I already know and what I've been taught, and then allow it to affect my teaching and my own educational practices. So here are the 3 ways in which I understood that we can look closely at how we're using data and research in the educational practices employed in a school or in a classroom. First, response to intervention was huge. Just the way that both Courtney and Elena spoke about using data and using research in creating groups, and then also in using that data to target specifically what students need. I had a lot of fun talking about this with them because the 3 of us are at the same school and we are all with the same exact SMART goal for the end of the year. So we are, as a school, aiming towards having 80% of students grades K5 reading at 90% or above accuracy, like on a 1-minute timed passage. So listening to them talk about the very thing that I'm doing in my classroom as well just honestly gave me a lot of confidence in what I was doing already and in what our school is doing. Our school's process looks really, really efficient, and to be honest, it is, and it's working really, really well. What we're doing is testing students for specific phonics patterns, and when a student doesn't know a specific phonics pattern, they are given an 8-day intervention and then tested again. And so this data is acted on very quickly. The very next day after they're tested, they begin their intervention, and then 8 days later they're tested again to see if the intervention was effective or not. This has been wonderful to see which kids are not learning fast enough and which kids need more time with specific groups, and it's also helped me to actually refer a student to special education because they were learning at a much slower rate than their peers. Furthermore, Elena has been an incredible instructional coach and been teaching us strategies for teaching these phonics and reading groups. So this is with point number 2, how kids learn. I am seeing through her leadership and through our school's look at this important aspect of how kids can learn best, and it is changing the way that we're delivering instruction and the way that we're designing instruction. And thirdly, we can look at research and data and let it affect us in the classroom and in the school by looking at best practices, and that can be around management, instruction, use of curriculum. We can make wise decisions about, am I using the curriculum to a T? Am I following it exactly? Or are there better ways out there that I know of that can teach this specific skill in a different way that is proven to be more effective? These were my 3 ways to help myself and my school put these reflections into practice. Last, after taking on new learning and discovering new things from these 3 people, the best way to move forward is to create a personal plan of action, reflecting on my leadership and how I am using these things in my classroom, and then sharing with my teaching partners. So I have 3 ways that I want to move forward from this project. Number 1, I'd like to continue using data in RTI like I have described that our whole school is doing, and I would love to continue with that process and to continue to help refine it and give feedback and collaborate with other teachers to see how we can make that the best it can be. Second, I would like to use current research to continue refining my management techniques. I feel like in regards to management, there are always new things to try, always better ways to do things, and I would love to be continually reading new research and applying it to my classroom in that sense. Third, I would like to make informed decisions about curriculum usage, whether that be picking and choosing what I'm using for specific lessons, or making actual decisions within the district and helping to give feedback on curriculum we use. This is important to me because I don't want to blindly follow something that I've been told to blindly follow. I want to be proactive and really find what is best for my students. So this is my plan of action that has to do with all the new learning I gained through this experience. I am completely open to learning more and getting more knowledge and making this plan of action of mine grow longer and longer and change and get better as I continue teaching.